They noticed him the moment the boarding gate began to close, not because he was loud or rude or causing trouble, but because exhaustion clung to him like a second shadow. A single father stood there gripping a worn backpack in one hand and the small fingers of his sleeping daughter in the other, his eyes wide with a quiet panic that comes only when you know you are about to lose something you cannot afford to lose. The airport lights were too bright, the announcements too cold, and time felt cruelly fast as the final call echoed through the terminal and his world threatened to stop right there on that polished floor. Before the story pulls you any deeper, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel if you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen struggles. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this connect hearts across the world. His name was Daniel Harper, and until 3 years ago, airports had meant vacations, laughter, and careless excitement. Now they meant survival. Since the night a drunk driver took his wife's life and left him standing alone beside a hospital bed holding a newborn he barely knew how to soothe, Daniel's life had become a series of careful calculations. Every paycheck was measured against rent, daycare, medical bills, and the quiet dream that his daughter Lily might still grow up feeling safe. This flight was not for leisure. It was a job interview across the country, the kind that could finally lift them out of the cycle of barely enough. Missing it meant starting over again with rejection emails and apologies he could no longer afford. Daniel had arrived at the airport early, but life had other plans. Lily had spiked a fever that morning, and the doctor visit stole hours and most of his remaining patience. By the time they reached security, the lines were endless and his hands shook as he tried to fold a stroller with one arm while holding Lily with the other. Every delay felt personal, like the universe was testing how much hope one man could carry before it slipped through his fingers. When he finally reached the gate, the boarding door was already closed. The staff looked at their screens, not at his face, and rules became walls he could not climb. Daniel tried to explain with tired eyes and a voice that barely held together, but policy does not listen to stories, and the gate agent shook her head with professional finality. Other passengers watched from a distance, some with pity, others with irritation, as if his desperation was an inconvenience to their orderly day. Daniel lowered himself onto a chair, Lily still asleep against his chest, her breath warm and steady while his heart raced. He stared at the floor and wondered how many times a man could fail before it broke something permanent inside him. He thought of the empty apartment waiting for them, of the email he would have to send explaining why he never showed up, of the promise he had made to Lily that things would get better. For the first time in years, he felt the dangerous weight of giving up press against his chest. What Daniel did not know was that someone had been watching quietly from a few rows away. A man in a simple coat, no entourage, no visible signs of importance, had noticed the father hours earlier. He had seen Daniel juggling paperwork, snacks, and a sick child with a patience that bordered on heroic. He had recognized that look, the one worn by people who carry more responsibility than anyone ever thanks them for. This man was Richard Coleman, the CEO of the very airline Daniel was trying to board, traveling incognito as he often did to understand what his passengers actually experienced. Richard did not see a missed flight. He saw a system failing a human being. As the final boarding announcement faded, Richard stood and walked toward the gate with calm, deliberate steps. The staff straightened instinctively, recognizing him only when he was close enough that surprise flickered across their faces. He did not raise his voice or demand anything. He simply gestured toward Daniel and spoke softly, firmly, and with an authority that did not need volume. The rules did not change, but suddenly there was room for compassion within them. The door reopened. The system bent, just enough. Daniel barely understood what was happening until a hand touched his shoulder and he was gently told to gather his things. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then to something dangerously close to hope. He boarded the plane last, heart pounding, Lily still asleep, unaware that her future had just shifted by a single, quiet act of humanity. On that flight, Daniel did not sleep. He stared out the window as the city lights fell away and felt tears he had held back for years finally escape. Not because someone powerful had intervened, but because someone had seen him. Really seen him. For the first time since his wife died, Daniel felt less invisible, less alone in a world that often pretends single parents do not exist. The interview changed everything. Daniel got the job. The salary meant stability, the city meant better schools, and the future suddenly felt like something he could plan instead of fear. Months later, he would receive a handwritten letter from Richard Coleman, not as a CEO but as a fellow human being, reminding him that kindness was not charity but responsibility, and that one day Daniel would have the chance to pass it on. Years passed, and Daniel did pass it on. To the exhausted cashier, the struggling co-worker, the stranger who needed just a little grace to keep going. Lily grew up knowing her father as a man who never quit, and a world that, sometimes, surprises you with goodness when you least expect it. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can change the course of a life, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach the people who need them most, and before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Comment below with a single word that represents what you felt while listening to this story, because somewhere right now, another tired parent is standing at a closed door, wondering if anyone will see them. And maybe, just maybe, stories like this remind us to look up, to notice, and to whisper kindness into a world that desperately needs it.